Hello, Canada. Welcome back to another edition of the Canadian Citizen Journal. I'm your host, Alias Tagai. Well, we've got a few things that we're going to have to go over here today. The main topic is just going to be this. Okay, first we'll start off with our public safety minister. He's already had to recuse himself because of his affiliation with a T group. This is just embarrassing. The guy should never have, first of all, been allowed to run. Second of all, he shouldn't be in this position. The fact that he got appointed as public safety minister, which I've shown on previous episodes, like, he knows nothing. This man is completely incompetent. And I bear to say, he doesn't understand Canada. At least, any part of the rural Canadianism from outside of cities. And there's a small demographic in cities that are PAL owners and part of that lifestyle. But really, the majority of rurals all have firearms in their closets. They either hunt, for food, for predators, or for sport. This guy's irrelevant, let alone all the other questions that he was asked as well. The guy knows. Anyways, we're just going to deal with that. But I'm going to focus today on Carney. Carney just appointed Michael Sabia to the clerk of the Privy Council. And I've got a file I've been working on here for quite some time. I'm going to just kind of go through some of what I'm working on and expose the cabal and how these are just more Laurentian elites that are all tied into the WEF, Bilderberg, all of the worst, most evil people on the planet trying to use tax dollars to profit, to our own environmental demise and our own poverty. And I'm going to expose, today on how they're using your pensions. Yes, your pensions. Because most of these people have sat on the chairs of these pensions and have made sure to divert and invest in, the new green cult, costing you not only your pension, creating poverty, the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis, the energy crisis, while making billions of dollars for all of the ultra elite through legislation and this, like I said, green fantasism that they live in, this false reality. So let's just get started on our public safety minister. You can't make this stuff up. Canada is so broken, it's craziness. So, public safety minister recuses himself from files on 2 terrorist groups. The cabinet minister's leading Prime Minister Mark Carney's border security push said Tuesday he's recusing himself from files related to Sri Lankan T group in this Canadian Front organization. In a statement sent to Global News on Tuesday, the Office of the Public Safety Minister, Giri Andasingari, said that he had stepped back from any matter related to the Liberation Tigers and Tamil Eelam, or the World Tamil Movement. The minister did not explain why he had done so, except to state that it was out of an abundance of caution. He released the document after Global News asked for a copy of the conflict of interest document he had prepared. By contrast, his office issued a statement last Thursday saying that he had asked public safety officials to implement a screen on any national security issues relating to the Tamil community. It's just zero transparency. You guys, I showed this before. It's right here. I'll post it again for any of you that didn't get to see it. This is where we are on. It's pretty much a list of freedom and democracy. And Canada, yes, we rank 53rd, well below dictatorships, communist nations like Russia and all the rest of them. Let's get back to this. So, both the groups he cited in his recusal statement have their origins in a conflict of Sri Lanka where Annika Sathuri was born before coming to Canada in 1983 and became an activist, realtor, lawyer, and MP. The Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, or LTTE, fought for a 25-year war against Sri Lankan government forces in an attempt to carve a separate state out of a tiny island nation off India's southern tip. In 2006, Canada placed the LTTE on its list of T entities, citing its T attacks against civilian centers and political assassinations, such as the 1991 killing of a former Indian Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi. Do you see where this is? Right? Like the hate for India they're pushing, all of these people are they're all psychotic extremist separatists within their own nations who their country's democracies are trying to stop. They're trying to remove, and Canada is backing them up, and we're even voting them in. We're voting these people in. This is disgusting behavior. I'm a firm believer that if you're not born in Canada, you shouldn't be allowed to run in politics. And I'm sorry it may sound, put it however you want to, but unless you've literally been born, been through the entire process, watched your parents suffer, watched Canadians suffer through government, being part of the actual Canadianism and its uniqueness in all of the areas that Canada has, you don't deserve the right to be in politics. That's my belief. Let me know how you feel in the comments. Anyways, this guy, by the way, this guy's family is involved in this Tamil, right? So, like, he's part of it. He may wash his hands of it and sit silently in the corner, but yeah. The World Tamil Movement, WTM, was added to the list in 2008, and the RCMP raided its offices in Toronto and Montreal, and the government seized its assets on the grounds that it was a fundraising arm of the LTTE. WTM represents canvas for donations among the Canadian Tamil population and have been involved in acts of intimidation and extortion to secure funds, according to the Public Safety Canada website. We're talking about like poking people's eyeballs out for torture, fingernails, all the nastiest things, long, slow, painful end-of-life things that they've done, broadcast, bragged about it, threatened about it, assassinations. These people are like completely off the rails, insane. Yeah. The Minister of Public Safety is responsible for the government's official list of T groups. Last year, when Dominic LeBlanc was minister, he recommended the LTTE and World Tamil Movement remain listed. According to the Public Safety Canada, while there have been little to no LTTE attacks in recent years, remnants of the group have continued to operate in Sri Lanka and India's Tamil Nadu. Now, you can guarantee this movement is going to be reborn because it's within our new Liberal Party's platform. They're bringing these people to Canada, just like the Calistinis. They're flooding us with this for fear, hate, and division. And on the international stage, it has just destroyed us. Previous episodes, people, like I did the whole part series on Trudeau and the Calistinis. It started with his dad. This is what socialist governments do. They back up and prop these evils in order to ascertain and hold power. Nothing's changed. It's just the rebirth of the old socialism. Now it's gone into total fascism, and now they've got an agenda, a money-making agenda, the green cabal, which we're gonna just tear apart today. So, anyways, without further ado, let's just get started with this whole announcement. Get ready, guys. Get ready. I'm just opening the lid a little wee bit on what's going on that mainstream isn't talking about. So here we have it. Today, the Prime Minister, Mark Carney, announced his intention to name Michael Sabia as Clerk to the Privy Council and Secretary to the Cabinet effective July 7th, 2025. Now, he goes on to and just outright lie, right? Mr. Sabia brings over 3 decades of expertise across the public and private sectors, including as President and CEO of Hydro-Quebec, President and CEO of Caisse de Dépôt de Placement du Québec, which is the Quebec Pension Plan, which we're going to dabble into a little bit here today, Canada's Deputy Minister of Finance. Oh, yeah, right. He was the guy advising Trudeau, right, when they were blowing through hordes and hordes of Canadian taxpayer dollars on projects that have been failing, the EVs and all, pretty much everything the Liberal government has invested in has tanked. At whose cost? Yours, the taxpayer. While these people make piles of money for the Laurentian elite and the global cabal. Now, I'm not going to read any more of this because this is all just butt kissing. And it's to try and make it look good. Okay, so you know what? I will read a little bit more because you need to know a little wee bit more about the roles and what they're not saying. He has also held senior roles at Bell Canada Enterprises as President and CEO, at Canadian National Railway, and in the Privy Council office. In recognition of his leadership across business, finance, and public services, Mr. Sabia was named an officer of the Order of Canada. It's nice that we can put badges on criminals, hey? Okay. He was also part of the Infrastructure Bank. Now, I'm just going to go through one article. Lots of articles, but I'm going to start past tense. So this is December 8th, 2020. The broken ethics and lost money of the infrastructure bank. So, as of the late, great beat writer so rightly put it, it's not the big things in life that drive mankind to the madhouse. Instead, it's the continuing series of small things. Not the death of this love, but the shoelace that snaps with no time left. So I'm reading the weekend papers the old-fashioned way, the print version of The Sun and other outlets, when my blood begins to boil and my mental shoelaces snap. I'm reading a story involving one of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's unremarkable cabinet ministers, Infrastructure Minister Catherine McKenna, and unfortunately also my MP here in Ottawa Centre. In the story, I'm going to scroll ahead, big ads, crazy. It is nothing, of course, when compared to the hundreds of billions of our debt and deficit, but who understands 1 billion, alone hundreds of billions of them? They are incomprehensible amounts. But 1.5 million squandered? Well, that should resonate among Canadians. There's an average annual salary of a few bucks shy of $55,000. It's an understandable money when the salary of 27 average Canadians is therefore maddening that it is treated so lightly. On April 1st, the bank's $600,000 a year CEO, $100,000 a year board chair, and chief project manager all resigned. McKenna's report of the House of Commons also noted the executives' qualified and unspecified variable performance incentives that ranged up to $1 million a year or more. For what? Showing up for less than a year, yet still getting golden farewell packages of hundreds of thousands. So why is no one in opposition screaming? Is a squandering of a few million not worthy of Charles Bukowski's free verse? And why has no shoelace snapped like mine? Or are hundreds of millions needed to raise awareness? The Infrastructure Bank, created with $35 billion of taxpayers' money, had Conservative MP Andrew Scheer telling the Commons Transport Committee during the hearing 3 weeks ago that the bank was announced with great fanfare while questioning how many projects had the bank completed in almost 4 years of existence. McKenna's response was that the bank was just now hitting its stride. That's it. Snap goes another shoelace. Back in June, McKenna claimed the Infrastructure Bank was involved in 55,000 subsidized projects, but said privacy and security concerns prevented her from revealing the location to the Parliament Budget Officer. Here's your transparency, people. How precious is that? The PBO, however, couldn't get evidence of the 52,000 projects, with some 20,000 unaccounted for, according to the Chief Officer, Yves Giroux. Do you think that those 20,000 projects exist? I believe they do exist, but it's hard to be convinced. Snap goes another shoelace. Think about it. How do you lose track of 22,000 projects? Boom, into the future. Managers called it a friendly investment, but construction was never started and the project was shelved in 2022. That was the project of the non-emitting, so let's just scroll up here a little wee bit. The bank pledged up to $655 million, or 40% of the total cost of the Lake Erie Connector by ITC Investment Holdings. This is the bank's first investment committed in the transaction project. Where's the other 52,000 projects? Date on this one? Let's scroll up. January 8th, 2024. So Infrastructure Bank lost $900,000. Where'd it go? Shelved on another project. This one we know about. What about the other 52,000 projects? Well, for some reason, all of these ties to the Infrastructure Bank lead back to certain investors, certain people, and the Laurentian elite. Where's your money going? Maclean's. This was a great article. I urge you to read it in its entirety. It's fabulously written. Farewell then, Canada Infrastructure Bank. After years of extravagant claims and no results, Ottawa's dream of a bank that would somehow turn on a gigantic global cash spigot is over. It's funny the various ways expectations can shrink. Here is Justin Trudeau and Catherine McKenna announcing a new plan for the Canada Infrastructure Bank, which is a novel organization designed to turn $35 billion from the federal government into widespread confusion and apathy. By attracting other people's capital, the bank maximizes the value of every dollar of taxpayer investment. Michael Sabia, who became the chair of the bank's board in April, told reporters, "In this way, we can stretch $1 of taxpayer investment into $2 or $3 of total project investment. This is a value for taxpayers." I'll say. And then McKenna says the infrastructure minister repeated the sentiment. There are real opportunities, she said, to take one taxpayer dollar and, as Michael Sabia has said, turn it into double or triple. That's so we can build even more good infrastructure for Canadians. Awesome. Money from the sky. Okay, two things about that. First of all, The multiplier Sabia and McKenna were describing, $1 from Canadians through taxes turning into $2 or $3 of total investment. Taxes, i.e. matched by perhaps $1 or $2 of private or institutional investments, represents a substantial retreat from the claims this government once made of the bank. Now, here's a chart from Bill Murnau's Fall Economic Update. So here on the left is the traditional funding model. Federal, 166 million. Provincial and territorial. You see how they're broke up nice and equal? This is what the Liberal Party does. Private investment takes up 80%. Think about this. That's backed by your dollar, profited by the taxes thereupon on the policies and through government, and who's reaping in the profits. Now, if you look at this chart, it sure and heck ain't you or I. That's $1 in tax money turning into $4 in investments from pension funds, ambition entrepreneurs, and other deep-pocketed non-governmental sources. And of course, since the lamented Morneau imagined that each federal dollar would automatically be matched by equal investments from the province and the municipality, the expected multiplier was vast, really, $11 from other sources for every $1 of the federal government. So that's one thing. The other is that the entire conversation is science fiction. In its 3-year history, which I would call troubled, except usually when the organization has had troubled history, it's kind of exciting, whereas perhaps the better adjective for the Canadian Infrastructure Bank's existence is boring. It was never provided an accounting of private sector investment for any investment the bank has made or contemplated. So we don't know whether the multiplier is 11 to 1 or negative pi over quidwich, right? So in other words, BS. You really should feel free to assert that $1 in CIB money attracts any amount of institutional investment that makes you feel good, and I have never had any information to rebuke you, and I never will. The Canada Infrastructure Bank exists in the exquisite realm prized by all public administrators, where they can make the most extravagant claims about it, while Trudeau called it an incredibly powerful tool to create opportunities, to create jobs, to create growth in the medium and long term in the country by investing in some major projects, blah, 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 blah. And it is apparently distasteful to ask for any evidence of the claims. The bank's website is farcical. The bank's website being right here. I will make sure to link it. Farcical is not, farcical doesn't even touch these people are, there is nothing here. False promises, no information, zero transparency, nothing there. So imagine applying for a $10,000 loan. As little information as the bank can give you about the use it's making of the $35 billion, you wouldn't get very far. Sabia was appointed to replace a former board chair 6 months ago with no explanation. The BIC CEO was sent packing on the same day with no replacement. Sabia said the new CEO will be named in the oncoming weeks. Probably that's even true, although the bank also thought it was about to name a new CEO in August. It goes on, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to scroll down to a little bit of better stuff. It's sometimes said that hope isn't a plan. Sabia said a few times in a manner of a man who has a plan. This plan is a result of serious analysis of current potential projects. In short, this plan is real. Great. Can we see it? Of course not. So here's the deal. 2016, this guy was writing for another company. Michael Sabia was giving the Trudeau government free advice on the economic policy. This is 2016, people. This is the beginning of the demise of our national debt. This is where they started spending just insane amounts of money, especially on projects that they've all failed. All have failed. He used to say there was a vast pool of institutional funds around the world looking for returns that were even marginally better than zero. There's $16 trillion hanging around where the investors actually pay the government to take their money. He said at some conference then, pension funds like the one he ran, Caisse de dépôt, were looking for infrastructure projects which could offer better returns, because Sabia normally left this part out. You could charge customers for tickets or put a chip in their car to measure when they used a highway, or meter their energy use, or make them pay in some other way. Are you catching on to this? This man is a global green cabal institutionalist. He is a Marxist. This is values. This is Carney's playbook. This is how these multi-billionaires, trillionaires, corporations, and the rest of them aim to completely decimate the average citizen. Moving on. And really, all you need to do was open a wicket with a sign saying infrastructure, and those trillions would park in Canada, which we're going to show you how, oh man, this is crazy. So, where am I here? Let's go a little bit further. No matter, the bank has quietly adopted a new business model in which the government money goes first and everyone simply hopes the private capital will show up later. The pilot project for his approach was Montreal's light rail network, financed mostly by the case under, I have to name right here somewhere, yes, Michael Sabia. Sabia once hoped similar projects could be exported around the world in an amusing subplot that got no coverage here, an early attempt by SACE to make that happen after Serbia's departure, an uninvited competitive bid to build light rail around Auckland, New Zealand, caused the entire project to collapse in confusion that summer. Like, this is insanity, okay? So this guy advised the Trudeau Liberals to our demise. He's involved in, wow, let's move on, just some crazy stuff. Now, this is a nice little article written by the Charity Report. And he's talking about Sabia. And, well, as always, just like Carney and the rest of them, how their spouses are involved in this as well. So, Brownell's story further points out that Hilary Pearson, wife of Michael Sabia and former CEO of Philanthropic Foundations of Canada, a lobby group for private and public foundations, is currently co-chair of the Advisory Committee of the Charity Sector, ACCS, a consultant forum for the Government of Canada to engage in meaningful dialogue with the charitable sector, to advance emerging issues relating to charities, blah, 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 blah. The committee came under blistering criticism earlier this year when it identified the major issues in the charity sector as the rules around direction and control of who a foundation grants funds to, the right to appeal decisions by the charities directorate to the Supreme Court, and charities having a home within government, yet took no opposition on raising the disbursement quota, and call many C category charities have been making since the beginning of the pandemic. C category charities are charitable organizations, A category charities are public foundations, and B category charities are private foundations. And despite calls from the charity sector lobby groups like Imagine Canada for a 10 billion Wuhan, I'm going to get censored, I'm already censored, stabilization fund from the government, the ACC has said it had no intention of dealing with the issue of the disbursement quota, and that would mean charities themselves would be required to make a larger contribution. At the time, charity lawyer Mark Bloomberg told the Charity Report that if after spending millions of dollars, this is what the committee came up with, my suggestion would be that the committee should be shut down and that the funds would have been spent on this committee should rather be used for capacity building activities in the charity sector. Alternatively, the composition and priorities of this committee requires a significant change. I urge you to read this incredible article. It just nails the idea. This is like... it's covert designation to charities with people on the tops of the charities all linked to these people making huge amounts of money and avoiding the charities that actually do the best value for the dollar. This is a complete and this is on a, this isn't the business end. Now they're taking over the charitable end, which again I've talked about and tried to get the word out about how Carney and the Liberals have been trying to remove non-charitable status for anybody who is pro-life. Taxing, all of a sudden, you're because you're not charitable, now you have to do the whole tax regime, and you fall out of the realm of being able to get government grants. Why? Because you don't follow the fascist ideology, that you have to listen to what they say, albeit it goes against not only your constitutional right, but your chartered right. They are using rules and laws and manipulation in order to create a fascist state. Your religion means nothing to them. They would rather see all of the religions completely just explode and go bankrupt These are atheists chasing a green god. The carbon is bad god. And anybody who stands in their way, if they can take money from them, they will use legislation in order to divert that money. So now they have an excuse, they have a reason because it's legislated into law, and put it towards funding charities, corporations, and entities that are involved in this green scam. We're not done. We're just getting started here. Listen very carefully.
Is the Minister of Finance going to be using taxpayer dollars to travel out of the country this week?
Yeah.
He was my critic when I was a young man, Mr. Speaker, when I started in this House, and now I see that 10 years after, I still have the pleasure to have to answer his question. He comes from a great region. My dad lives next to his.
Niagara West.
Is the Minister of Financing planning on traveling to the Bilderberg meetings this week using taxpayer dollars?
The Honourable Minister.
I'm very proud to answer questions from my colleague. Like I said, he comes from a great region where my family is also, and so I've seen him in action, and it's great to see that they can.
For Niagara West.
I want to ask the Finance Minister why he believes that he should spend time at the Bilderberg meetings rather than actually tabling a budget.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so glad to see my colleague is actually following, paying so much attention about what I do. I travel to Shawinigan also every weekend, Mr. Speaker, and I would be glad to invite him at home as well because he seems to be very interested where I'm going.
This is Liberal. This is the new Liberal Party. Why are you going to the Bilderberg? Why aren't you tabling a budget? Now, there's been a lot of talk about this for decades, that anybody who doesn't answer a question in Parliament should be fined. And after X amount of fines, they should be fired. And I'm a libertarian. This is what I believe. The whole idea of having Parliament is so that you answer questions so that the opposition has their arguments can be discussed in order for all of the people to sit around and say, oh, okay, well, if that's the case, then I will agree with that part and then I will disagree with this part. But what about this part? There's got to be dialogue. That ended. We've never really had it. It's always been a shouting match and lots of lies. But this last 10 years has destroyed what last little bits of integrity Parliament has. Why is he going to Bilderberg? Again, I've been warning about this. This is the takeover. They're trying to finish the steps. That's a closed meeting. Now you have an elected MP allowed to go sit down with a whole pile of very elite people, evil people, to discuss what? Where your tax dollars are going to be used to profit up their companies so that they can cash out on huge amounts of not only the share price, but all of their little companies that do all of the building of said projects, who then all leave, then they pull their money out, and then when the company falls, who's left carrying the burden? You and I are. Well, let's see. Who else was at the Bilderberg meetings? Drum roll, please. Sabia Michael, Canadian President and CEO, Caisse Le Dépôt et Placement de Quebec. Interesting. Now the real kicker is how does this fall into a lot of money that went missing? Well, let's just scroll up here, and trust me, I'm going to put this on there. People, read the names. Read the names. Oh, did I just accidentally pause in the right place? Carney, Mark, J, Governor, Bank of England. Oh, people. Anyways, whoops. Sorry to have to expose a little bit more evil and corruption. Let's check out the date of this. 2018. Infrastructure bank come to mind, people? Oh, missing money? Projects failed, redivested? Oh, interesting. Very interesting. Let's move on. Oh, World Economic Forum. Michael Sabia. Well, I'll be darned. This guy seems to really just swim in the cesspool of all of this money laundering, bad investments, and evil green climate crap. You can't make this stuff up. It's all there. Again, I post all the evidence in the description. Let's move on. Now, I'm going to attach this. I'm not really going to go through a lot of it. This is just a portfolio for the Caisse de dépôt. But I want people take the time, click on this and go through this. And check out how they divested from Canadian stock into foreign stock. Especially stock from China and the US. And the kicker is most of the stocks in here that you will see that are running in the negative are Canadian stocks that are plummeting because our economy. This is why they can't get out of Canada fast enough. They're involved with the government who literally is purposely like destroying our country, which I've previous episodes, in order for them to come in, the scavengers, the buzzards they are, to pick up the pieces at low prices, because through legislation these companies are going tits up in a handbasket, and then start to change policy for them to make money for themselves. I urge you, go through this list. You would be surprised. Now, moving on. Quebec Pension Fund manager to buy Energex Renewable Energy. This is a deal valued at $10 billion. This is Energex's stock. When all of the promises of big bucks were going to come in, do you notice how high their stock was? This is 2021. As the Liberal government fell, as the Green governments around the world started losing majority government seats and were losing to a more conservative or true liberal, real liberals, not these fake liberals, these green zealots, they crashed. They crashed. Who crashed them? This is the elite playing with your money. Now, these investments all come on the back of, you see this little bump? The announcement of this. Meet the players behind 8 companies pitching green hydrogen projects in Newfoundland. Now, you guys may all remember this. This is becoming back into the news again because now that we have a new Liberal leader, the general of the Green Climate Cartel, and he's secured the position, these stocks are going to start coming up again because he is using legislation in order to go around the same rules any other Canadian would have to, that we do run into. So the Indigenous, they're going to just give taxpayers money to the Indigenous. They're going to skip all the environmental. They're going to hide from you the true reality of how bad these investments are and the true environmental impact that these projects are going to have. This is a cycle. This is all done through legislation. We almost bankrupt these companies. We were this close, but propaganda and the socialist movement in Canada got the Liberals re-elected. This is the scare myself and hundreds, if not thousands of independents have been warning about. We're going to move on. I'm going to post the Energex on there. you'll be able to see all of their projects and how many other pension plans have been leapt and glued and bought into them before, during the peak of the Liberal Party, 2016, 2017, 2018, when they were going to get huge government grants in order to build these and not payable loans and all the rest of the bells and whistles, when all of these investors were the global elite using pension funds. There you go. Energex's 3 wind projects selected June 6, 2025. Stocks, boom, going through the roof again. Moving on. Canadian pension fund pays $6 billion for Pattern Energy's 4.4 gigawatt renewables portfolio. November 5th, 2019. Pattern Energy stocks. Let's check it out. 5 years. Do you notice something familiar with the way the stocks go up and down? This doesn't end. I'm going to post the Pattern Energy Securities litigation. This is a case going through. This pattern was bought by the pension, literally purchased by the Canadian Pension Fund for $6 billion in 2018. You guys, the government, these are all Laurentian elites sitting on the boards. These people are all in cahoots. They're all part of the WEF. They're all part of Bilderberg. They're all part of this insanity. Nobody is talking about this. So this is, again, it's a class action lawsuit. Certain shareholders of Pattern Energy Group filed a class action complaint against the District of Delaware, a federal action now captured in Pattern Energy Group Incorporated securities litigation against Pattern Energy and its directors and officers, alleging violations of Section 14A and 20A of the Securities Exchange Act, based on the dissemination of a false and misleading proxy statement in connection with a merger on February 4th, 2020 between Pattern Energy and the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. Moving on. So this goes back to the players, the 8 companies behind. We're just going to expose a few of them. I've been working on this file. This is insane what I am finding. Where was I? Right, ABO, another company. ABO has transferred 90% of its share to Tuklokluk Wind and Hydrogen Project to Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners. ABO Energy retained a 10% ownership and will continue to be actively engaged in the project as a minority shareholder and co-developer. The project is located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada, and aims to produce competitive green hydrogen and ammonia supported by exceptional wind resources and federal infrastructure. There's more to this story I can't talk about right now. I'm still finding more evidence. All of these windmill projects and who they're related to, how they're using your pensions. We're not talking one pension. We're not talking 2 pension. We're talking mass Canadian pensions that have been divested and lost billions of dollars that this government is now trying to evade its own environmental policies and regulations in order to force these with the help of your tax dollars to get it built. And who's profiting off it? These global elitists are profiting off it. Canada Pension Plan, the Canadian University Pension Plan, has invested significantly in Copenhagen Infrastructure Partners, committing $150 million to its flagship strategy aimed at developing renewable energy products. It doesn't end, people. Plug Power, shares owned by Healthcare of Ontario Pensions Plan Trust Fund. By the way, these funds, a lot of these funds were diverted pre-legislation through the Liberal Party, pre-Bill C-69. They were pulling out because they knew They were going to shut down the Canadian oil sector, and they were buying pipelines in third world countries and dictatorship-ruled nations, like the Saudi Arabia. Previous episodes, people. I did a 2-part series on this through Brookfield. Now, all of a sudden, where's the money going to? These guys, the government, are giving themselves permission to pick projects that can evade the same rules any other Canadian company has to follow. They are allowing themselves to be a full-fledged fascist dictatorship. You have no say, and we know where our transparency lies. Where's your money going? It doesn't end. Here is the stock price, 2021 to date. Plug Power Incorporated. Do you notice something? Right. This is your pensions, people. Let's just listen to this.
The hydrogen economy bubble is bursting. 20% European hydrogen projects cancelled. The hydrogen economy relies on hydrogen as a means to store and transport energy from intermittent renewable sources. While the idea sounds promising in theory, it's proving to be economically unviable in practice. Investors are beginning to recognize this reality. According to industry analyst Westwood Insight, about 20% of planned green hydrogen projects in Europe have been cancelled. These projects, which were designed by using renewable energy to produce hydrogen, are now being abandoned, along with associated infrastructure like pipelines. Hydrogen projects also faltering in Australia and the US. This isn't just a European problem. In October 2024, one of Australia's largest energy companies withdrew from plans to build a renewable hydrogen plant. Almost the same time, Air Products, a major industrial gases company in the US, pulled out of a $4.5 billion green hydrogen project in Texas. Hydrogen company stocks are plummeting. The Financial Times reported that some of the biggest hydrogen companies in the US and Europe have seen their stock prices drop dramatically in 2024, with declines ranging from 30% to 50%. Let's take FuelCell Energy for example, one of the most well-known hydrogen energy companies in the US. Back in the year 2000, its stock price hit an eye-popping $150,000 per share. Fast forward to today, it's limping along at just $10 a share. That's right, folks, a nosedive for the ages. Take a look at the stock chart. It's just like a roller coaster. Honestly, I can't help but wonder, are the investors who bought this stock back in 2000 still alive? Or did the sheer heartbreak send them straight to an early retirement financially and emotionally? The risks of storing hydrogen. At first glance, hydrogen seems like an ideal energy solution. It combines with oxygen to produce water and energy, with no pollution. However, the reality is far more complex and dangerous. Hydrogen is highly flammable and explosive when mixed with air. To store it safely, it must be kept under high pressure, a technically feasible but inconvenient and risky process. Hydrogen embrittlement, a costly challenge. A less obvious but more severe issue is hydrogen embrittlement. Hydrogen atoms are incredibly small, allowing them to seep into almost any material over time. This affects everything from storage tanks to pipelines and control circuits, driving up maintenance costs. Adding to the complexity, hydrogen fuel cells require rare earth metals, further increasing costs. In efficient energy conversion, less than 40%. Perhaps the biggest obstacle is the abysmal energy efficiency.
And just a learning note. Do you know what caused Fukushima, amongst hundreds of other very disastrous environmental hazards that have happened over time? This did. It's called hydrogen embrittlement. hydrogen is an incredibly small molecule. It permeates everything, eats away at it. This is a huge problem. Scientists all over the world are warning to not get involved with this type of technology. The whole green, blue, and gray hydrogen system of carbon, blah, blah. The dangers involved. The technology isn't there. They're leap forwarding themselves to a product that we don't even have the capability to ship or pipe unless they dilute it with things like ammonia. Yes, you're going to ship huge barges, huge tankers full of ammonia, or I should say hydrogen-induced ammonia, in order to have to go all the way across overseas and then return that back to pure hydrogen to only get, at the best value possible, 40%. On average, it's 20 to 20% productivity from this. That's the efficiency level of hydrogen, people. And we still don't even have things that can run on it.
Optimistically, only about 40% of the energy used to produce hydrogen can be recovered when it's converted back to electricity. In reality, the efficiency is often much lower. The more complex and frequent the chemical processes, the greater the energy loss. Disappointing progress despite massive investments. The US, UK, and Europe have collectively invested billions in hydrogen initiatives, but the results are underwhelming. Europe, for instance, aims to have 120 gigawatts of installed capacity by 2030, yet only 0.2 gigawatt is operational today. The International Energy Agency corroborated these findings in its summer report. To meet 2030 targets, global green hydrogen production would need to increase by a staggering 200 times within just 6 years, which is a near impossible feat. A recent audit by the European Court of Auditors scrutinized the EU's hydrogen economy plans and found them deeply unrealistic. The report concluded that these initiatives are driven by political ambition rather than solid analysis.
Do you get it? Political ambition. So, political ambition being what? Why is it that all of the political ambition is from policies put in through the WEF, Bilderberg, and all of these other global investors who are reaping profits by changing legislation, forcing you and I to, heat pumps, previous episodes, Brookfield. Same thing happened in Britain, previous episodes, Brookfield, Mark Carney. Do you see where this is going? Forced legislation in order to push an agenda to make profit for the elite off the backs of citizens. This is, again, previous episodes where I exposed the fact that Carney is actually on a name that could be subpoenaed and charged for fraudulent activities, socialist activities, using this green scam to either take over companies or force companies to invest in said companies. The US Senate, this is all going to be coming on in the next 4 to 6 months. I'm hoping they speed it up. But right now, with all of the Wuhan stuff that they're exposing and a lot of these other scams, they're buried up to here. But we're going to start seeing this. How much of your pension plan has been lost to make these people rich? Let's just finish this video. This video just says it all.
While hydrogen may still have niche applications, the vision of a global hydrogen economy as the backbone of renewable energy appears increasingly unsustainable. It's a sobering reminder that good intentions alone aren't enough to overcome the harsh realities of science, engineering, and economics.
Here's the reality that the media doesn't want you to know. It's only being spoke of a few times. This global energy show just happened. Everybody in the media is screaming that we're at the peak oil's done. Oil's a thing of the past. It's got to stay in the ground. Forget it. It's not going to grow. Don't invest in that. The West has been listening to this for 48 years. Generations have watched the East repeat this over and over and over again while they allow the elite, the Laurentian elite, to make hundreds upon hundreds of millions, now billions of dollars, by keeping Alberta smothered in legislation, in rules, and in just not allowing them to get their projects done through interprovincial trade. All of this legislation that's coming out right now is not going to get pipelines built. They may try one in particular, and the media and everybody's pushing for it, and that's to get it to Churchill, to the Hudson's Bay. Now, think carefully about this. I'm going to be doing an episode, but I'm just going to throw this out there. You need icebreakers. Hudson's Bay, many times through its history, in fact, the last time I believe was 2018, in July, needed icebreakers to get ships in and out. Who needs icebreakers? Hello? Canada. Canada wanted to buy them. The States, Trump even said it. Wow, we can't trust them. They don't have any money. This gives reason for your tax dollars to be used through an Laurentian elite company. It'll be Canadian. This is what they do. The same companies that have been building ships while others don't even get a chance to get off the ground. All that money will go through their CEOs, will go all through. You're just going to launder it all out through your tax dollars with an excuse. And guess what? It's not the oil or the gas. They may start to build it. They may say they're going to build it. They're not. This is all going to be pushed with this hydrogen, green hydrogen. All of these green fake businesses. Listen carefully.
Global population, the economy, and to no surprise, the oil industry were some of the topics highlighted during the first day of the Global Energy Show Canada 2025 in Calgary. The General Secretary of OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, says oil will continue to remain an integral part of the energy mix in the future, and he doesn't think there will be a peak in oil demand.
Simply put, ladies and gentlemen, there is no peak in oil demand on the horizon. The fact that oil demand keeps rising, hitting new records year on year, is a clear example of what I'm saying. In fact, our projections are that oil demand will go and surpass 120 million barrels a day by 2050. And meeting this ever-rising demand will only be possible with adequate and timely and necessary investments in the oil industry.
He also touched on Alberta's role in the oil industry and predicts energy demand could rise by 24% between now and 2050, saying it will require trillions of dollars in global investments.
Now, so what they're doing is backdoor trading. This is illegal. And it's the government that's doing it. You have insiders who have become part of these boards through the pension plans, who know before legislation is being put in, and they know exactly, just like Carney with his heat pumps, previous episodes, you invest in those products. You try to prop it up using pensions, which you have insiders who are sitting on the boards that are divesting huge amounts of money from those pensions. Those then sit idle while legislation gets pushed through. Once the legislation is pushed through, the companies within our country then start falling out of business. They're crushed. They're kneecapped. They can't make money. They can't get projects built. Their shares start to plummet. let alone the fact that money's been pulled out of them forcibly, pretty much, from the government, because they're pulling the pensions out of where normally we would make our money, which back in the day was oil and gas. It is the largest part of Canada's revenue, GDP. Then those same legislation that they put in forces Canadians to buy those failing products or ideas. Now, heat pumps, another great example, right? And this is the worst part, is that now they're taking money from taxpayers to subsidize these companies so they can charge excessive amounts for their products, receive a kickback from the government, tax dollars, that are then forced upon Canadians to buy on a product that is junk and doesn't work in Canada. The worst part about what's coming is this new green tech, this green hydro. These windmill projects, windmills have a lifespan, and I'll be doing an episode on this. The ones they put in water have already been proven to completely destroy the habitats underneath the oceans and seas. The vibration from it completely throws out any sonar ability of the animals. This is catastrophic to so many different species of fish. Let alone the fact that we already know we got whales all over the place that are beaching. And then you add to that the fact that the lifespan itself of the windmill and how they're made makes them virtually unrecyclable. Where do they get buried? What happens to them? And where are the windmills being built? What companies own that? This is a full circle of backdoor trading. And the kicker, the deepest part about it all, is that not only is it impoverishing a nation and removing our rights and freedoms, it's the people who are hardest hit by it are those who aren't involved in the pensions. They're the people like myself, a lot of tradespeople out there, a lot of independent, self-employed. Our investments are our home, our equipment. We're the ones who suffer the most because we don't get that little wee bit of a payback through a pension. The pensions aren't making the record profit. And then whenever they do make a record profit, usually it's because another country somewhere votes out the green or votes in the green. And that you can see that by following the stock market. The stock doesn't lie. All of these people, we are so corrupted. These people are literally ripping the rights, forcing their agenda down your throat, and all on the backs of us Canadians. And now the Indigenous are brought into it as the next puppet. You're being given tax dollars. So taxpayers are paying for Indigenous to invest, because the Indigenous don't really have a lot of money to begin with anyways. It's not like the Indigenous is a corporation per se. So the government gives them taxpayer money to invest into these corporations, these green initiatives that they're going to get supposed money from. Then okay, now what happens? Now what happens when all of this fails, especially with embrittlement and all the rest of the stuff that we know? What happens when this entire carbon nastiness comes crashing down? More and more people are speaking out. I'm going to do an episode on this. The carbon lie is huge. This is all on the backs now of the Indigenous people, and it's propped up by Canadian tax dollars. This is some of the most evil practices I've ever seen, and it's allowed. Like, I'm surprised that there aren't more lawyers and institutions and even like policing systems that aren't looking into this and bringing it to attention. Maybe they're out there and I haven't found them yet, but people have got to wake up. We literally have the most corrupt government in the history of Canada. It's there, and with these new laws coming in, that gives the government the right to go around, to circumvent the same rules they put in to crush non-socialist businesses. independent businesses, our oil and gas, all of the entrepreneurs out there. The goal is they want as many fast food chain outlets. They want everything to be corporate owned, profit driven. They don't want the small independents making money. They want everybody embedded into this system without a way of getting out of it. And again, on previous episodes, I talked about this with the cash. They're starting at 10,000, but once the law is passed, they can change that number anytime they want. We're going downhill fast. This government has to fall. Anybody out there? I mean, I got a lot of most of my subscribers. They say, well, they're competitors, and yeah, there are a few out there that steal my work, which that does choke me. But like, use it. If you've got that 100,000 base, get the word out. If you've got the time, take my information and look at it. You can literally trace laws. You can literally follow how pensions are divesting money into businesses, and then legislation comes in, putting laws in that promote the pensions. Then all of a sudden, those same legislators and those businesses now are accelerating huge stocks. And then the second any type of a government that isn't within this falls, those stocks plummet. And all of this is making money for the billionaires on the backs of the pensions. Now, like I said, the pensions are making small amounts of money. Sometimes they make good, sometimes they do bad. But from what I've been showing you, they're trying really hard right now to prop up these failing businesses. These businesses are failing hardcore. We're the last bastion. Canada is going to be pillaged and put in so much debt so that these people, these elite, can get their money back out of it and hopefully make profits off of what's left of this green cartel, because it's failing so bad all over the world. I hope you enjoyed my episode. I have a busy night ahead of me, like always. I don't get a lot of sleep, but I have a sow that is out of season, and she's been giving us grief. She should have had her litter a week and a half ago, and it looks like she's gonna be doing it tonight. So I'll be up all night monitoring that, as well as trying to get another episode done. And life goes on off grid in rural Canada. Anyways, you guys, until next time, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you are, punch that notification bell. I'm Alias Tagay. You've been watching the Canadian Citizen Journal. Stay informed.